Do you hear the grasshopper, which is at your feet?
Hello, Jim Matthews, GlassHopper.com. I'm told these jellyfish chimes are hugely popular in sunny coastal areas these days, and like actual jellyfish, they're no-brainers. But don't let the apparent simplicity fool you. We're going to cut wavy circles and wavy strips, drill with both conventional and hollow core bits, create bubbles on purpose, texture with shelf primer, and piece together a combination of lighting and fishing hardware to make these chimes both appealing and functional. Before you know it, you'll have jellyfish tinkling in your backyard. I started out by making a batch of oversized pebbles for design elements, globs they call them in stained glass, using thin glass here because my scrap bins are full of it. These big guys will probably wind up a little wonky instead of nice and round. So we'll take these to a full fuse, and they should come out looking like this. There, see, the large ones are not fully rounded up. How did I know that? I've seen this already. The slumping mold I've decided on is this one, 7.5 inches in diameter and fairly steep and deep. It has a flat bottom, which is good for a bowl, less so for a jellyfish, but it'll do. That's the perimeter of the mold, and I figure I can safely wander about 1/4 inch outside of that, so I'm going to make a wavy edge, trying to stay within that range. This is where you really appreciate the turntable. Using running pliers on a circle is made possible by having the sides cut down to 1/2 inch or less of the score. If the glass is particularly touchy, I'll even slice the corners off, but usually I just work carefully around one way, then reverse directions to reach the sections I couldn't before. Just like a conventional circle, relief scores. Where you see me lifting this sheet and looking at the edge, I'm checking to be sure that the circle score is clearly run at the spot I want to put a relief score. If it's not, the glass might break right across it and through my circle. I'm going to use thin glass for the base, again, just because I have a lot of it. Give yourself a guide mark so you can match up these wavy edges later. Guide mark. Notice how I was careful to mark the inside of these circles, not the part I threw away. The next challenge is remembering not to wipe the marks away when you clean the glass. Clear powder around the edge between these layers. As the glass heats up, the center will sag first, forcing air out the edges that are slightly lifted. That's where my hardware will go. Let's do another one. What I have here is magic bubble powder, which not too long ago you could buy in little bags or jars for a few dollars each, until word got around that it's only baking soda. 100%. And I have just acquired about as much as I can pinch between 2 fingers and am trying to distribute it evenly on this clear base. It's hard to see being white on a white background. This should be interesting. I'll leave the technicalities of twisty tentacles to you, except to say that I started one end wide and ended in a point. I'll drill at the wide end. 8 per jellyfish. Vary the lengths if you want, but don't cripple the poor thing. The more advanced artist might forego the drawing of the squiggly line and bravely freehand these scores, possibly even attempting the rare double. There's a temptation to skip a firing and use these as is, but the edges are sharp and there's an unfinished quality about them. Post-firing, smooth and finished. And they seem stronger too, less brittle. Drill close enough to the edge to accommodate a jump ring, far enough away to bear the weight of a swaying tentacle. Whoa, look at that. That bubble's not only big, it has popped, leaving a sharp, shard-like edge. I'm going to groze away what I can here with the breaking pliers, then use a diamond cutoff wheel to grind the edges down and smooth them. I have an idea for another coloration which I think will be especially gelatinous. This is turquoise opal powder, going down unevenly, which is really the only way I know how to apply it. Thick areas and thin areas, some clear spots. I'm going to spray that, which is probably not necessary, and then an application of turquoise coarse frit, followed by a comparable amount of vanilla cream. The vanilla will react both with the powder underneath it and the frit it is adjacent to. Now this is navy blue, medium plus. A little clear powder around the edges between layers to facilitate the release of undesirable gases. Then, to help obscure the hardware to come, I'm going to add some texture with a sprinkling of shelf primer underneath the base. And that can go in the cooker. I want to do the bubbly thing again, convinced I can gain some measure of control and predictability. The pinching approach hasn't worked. I tried sifting it on like powder too. Don't do that. And here I'm using very small amounts in my freakishly malformed spoon, trying to make every little tap similar and equidistant. I've got the base clear temporarily on top of the amber cap now, so the application will be more visible for you and I both. Now moving the clear to the bottom so the soda is between the layers. Here is the fired turquoise vanilla cream version. Looks okay. Probably a little light on the powder. See the texture on the back from the shelf primer? And this can go into slump. Now there's nothing tricky about the slump on these, but you do want to use a mold that's deep enough to hide the hardware. Let's take a look at that hardware now. These are nipples, hollow, threaded end to end, come in various lengths, common lighting hardware. This is a lighting loop. The nipple screws into it. Then washers. Gotta have washers because IKEA always does. And hex nuts that fit the nipple. I'm going to use this nice stiff screen under the jellyfish hood to dangle the tentacles from. Here using tin snips to cut a 3-inch square. And then small wire cutters to open a 1/2-inch hole in the center. And because I've used transparent glass, I'm going to spray paint the screen black to help hide it. Optional, of course. Cross your tentacles now and we'll take a look at how our magic bubble powder worked this time. There we go. This is more like what I had in mind. One unruly blister there, but we can work with that. The nipple will require a 7/16" hole, which calls for a hollow core bit, which means in my studio a household drill because it won't fit in the Dremel. Careful marking your spot. Where you drill will affect how the jellyfish hangs. Very important with a hollow core bit. Start at an angle, get a little bite, then tilt up to perpendicular. Now let's put all this hardware to good use. First, see how I've bent the corners of this screen up? Don't do that. Nipple into lighting loop, then a washer. Then the nipple feeds through the jellyfish. Flip it, add the screen, another washer, and the hex nut. Hand tighten, no tools required. Now let's run through the ceremonial dangling of the tentacles. Jump rings from craft stores and fishing swivels right out of the tackle box. Jump rings are split in one spot. I'll spread one apart to expose the ends, thread a swivel onto it, then thread the jump ring through the hole in a tentacle, and use the pliers to close the ends. Jump ring on the tentacle, swivel on open jump ring, close the jump ring. That's it. When all my tentacles are prepared, I will open the swivels. They work just like a safety pin, and I just hook them to the screen and leave them open. After finishing these, I decided the tentacles were hanging down a little too far. Jellyfish are very modest creatures and don't like their hardware showing. So I went back and removed the barrel from the safety pin part of the swivel. Just takes a nip with little wire cutters and put that directly on the jump ring. That cut the length of the swivels in half. Do it from the beginning if you want.